Let's continue with our next lab, ingest data with a pipeline in Microsoft Fabric. This lab is slightly longer than the other labs we have been doing so far. It'll take us 45 minutes if we are not aware about Microsoft Fabric and how to use it. But since I have some familiarity with Microsoft Fabric, it'll take me slightly a lesser amount of time. So let's jump into the first task, creating a workspace. As you already know, we have been creating workspaces by clicking on this workspace icon here and then clicking on create a new workspace. Let's create a new workspace named DP-600 Lab 3 and just make sure that we have the license enabled to either trial, premium capacity, or fabric capacity. And then hit apply, and here we have our workspace. The second task in here will be to create a lake house. So I'm just going to click on that new item button there and scroll down to store data section. Here I am, and click on lake house. I'm going to name this the DP-600 Lab 3 lake house. And here we have our lake house created and empty. So before we go and create a pipeline, we do need to create a new subfolder called new data. So I'm going to go to the files node and click on new subfolder and create a new subfolder here called new data. There you go. And now we can go to the next task, which is create a pipeline. So I'm going to just stay on this Lakehouse homepage, and we have a Get Data button here where I can select the new data pipeline. And we're going to create a pipeline that's going to be called Ingest Sales Data. Just going to copy that from the instructions and create a new pipeline. So this is the copy data wizard. As you can see, it has opened automatically for us. We did not have to go to copy data, use copy assistant. And in this wizard, we're going to be selecting a data source. So in this choose data source, we're going to search for HTTP data source. So I'm just going to select that and select this HTTP data source. And here we need to put in the URL where we're going to fetch the data from. It's going to be some sales data. So I'm just going to copy this URL and I'm going to paste it in there. And then we're going to create a new credential. We can specify a unique name for the connection name. I'm going to say HTTP, or we can say DP-600 Lab 3 connection. No data gateway, anonymous kind, authentication kind is anonymous, and select next. Now in this section, we're going to set the options as we have over here. Relative URL, we're going to leave it blank. Request method get. Additional headers, leave it blank. Binary copy, unselected. Request timeout, leave blank. Max concurrent connections, leave blank. And select next. So we're not making any changes in that previous section. In this section, we are going to leave the file format to be delimited, column delimiter to be comma, row delimiter to be line feed. So here we do need to change it because it's a default row limiter. So we're going to change that to line feed. Our first row is header selected, compression type none, which is what it is right now, no compression. And then select next. There is an option here to preview the data as well, so we can preview the data before we go on to next. In this section, we're going to finally connect to the data destination. So we've finished checking the data source. So now we're going to connect to the data destination. We're going to put that file into the file section. Remember, we have created a subfolder in the file section of our Lakehouse. So we're just going to browse here and we find this new data um, subfolder, and we can connect to the subfolder. Select it, new data. And then the file name, we're going to say sales.csv. And the copy behavior, we're just going to keep it as none and select next. Now we also have to give some file format for our destination. So we're going to keep this as delimited, comma. I'm going to change this to line feed like we did before. Add header to the file, selected, compression type none, and select next. So we can review all the details on this section, and then we can click save and run. So now we have created a new pipeline containing a copy data activity, and this is what is running, and we can just drag this up to see the details of the execution. All right, there you go. Now our run has succeeded. So we can go back to our lake house and just double check that our data now actually resides in the new data folder. And if we close that, we can see we have that sales.csv. When we had an empty lake house before, now we have a lake house with some data in it. The next task is to be creating a notebook. So let's navigate back to our lake house. We are in our lake house, and here on the home page we can see we have an open notebook button here. So I'm just going to open into a new notebook. There you go. So now we have a notebook which is connected to our lake house. So it's connected to our lake house because we have already opened this notebook from the lake house, right? I'm just going to delete all this code and copy and paste the code that is given to me in the instructions. And then we are also going to toggle this cell as a parameter cell. So you can see now it says parameters, which means that this variable can now be treated as a parameter, and the value of this parameter can be changed from outside of this notebook. Let's add a new code cell, and I'm going to add all of this code in here. So I'm just going to copy and paste it in there. Um, all right, and then we can run the entire notebook. What this code is going to do is it's going to create a table named sales in the table section of this lakehouse, but not before doing some of these transformations. So you can see this table name is actually used in the last part of this code, of this Python code. Now, let's go back to notebook 1, where is executing the code. All right, so this is executed. Now, if I refresh the tables section, I should see a new table in there, which is called sales. Very good. So that's the end of our second task, which is the create a notebook task. Now we're going to go back and modify our pipeline. So let's go back to our ingest sales data pipeline. And we're going to, on the Activities tab, we are going to select the Delete Data activity. So I'm going to bring that Delete Data activity, and I'm going to move it to be in front of my Copy Data activity. And we're going to connect the completion output on completion output to my Copy Data activity. In the Delete Data activity, if I select it, my settings now are corresponding to this activity. I have some settings here I need to change, like the name of the activity. All right. Then in the source, we are going to add the connection to my data lake, which is a DP-600 Lab 3 data lake. And in here, we're going to use the wildcard path. And the folder path is files and new data. We can browse here to select new data, which is the subfolder that we had created when we created the lakehouse. So we're just going to select new data. And the wildcard file name is going to be star.csv. Recursively is going to be selected, and in the logging settings, we're going to disable logging. All right, so this activity is going to make sure that if there is any data in the new data folder in the files section of my lakehouse, that data will be deleted. All right, so it's going to delete whatever we have now. We now have that sales CSV file in our new data folder will get deleted, and then this copy data activity will copy it again into that location. All right. Now that we are done, we are going to now add a notebook activity into our pipeline. So I'm just going to make some more space here so I can add my notebook activity. So I'm just going to click on this notebook activity and I'm going to put it right here. And let's zoom in a little bit so we can see it all clearly in the center of my page. And we're going to also move the completion output to this notebook activity. And let's take a look at the settings for this notebook activity. I'm going to name it Load Sales Notebook. And in the settings, we're going to select that notebook 1, which we have not yet renamed. I could also go here and rename this to Load Sales. And then come back here and this will be refreshed and this is now pointing to the load sales notebook. And in the base parameters, we're going to create a new parameter called table name. Remember the table name parameter we had in the notebook? Now through this, we are going to be changing the value of that variable or parameter. So now instead of the sales table, we should have a new sales table getting created. All right, so that's going to be passed on from my pipeline into that notebook there. All right, great. And then we can save this pipeline and we can run it. This will take a little bit more time than the first time we ran this pipeline because the first time was a simple copy. This time it will take slightly longer to complete the run of this pipeline. You can see it has completed the first activity, which is deleting the old files in the Lakehouse folder new um, the new sales folder, and now it is copying the data. There you go, and we have the second activity completed. And now we are doing the last activity, which is the notebook activity. And finally, we have the pipeline completed. Let's take a look at our lake house, and I'm just going to refresh the lake house just to see if we have that new sales table created. And there you go, we have our new sales table created, which means that our pipeline has successfully been executed. And with this, we are come to the end of our lab number 3. And thank you for watching. I'll see you in another one.